Hey, Larry, thanks so much for making time today. Really appreciate you being here.
It's such a pleasure to be with you.
I appreciate it. I know you're doing a lot of traveling, so thanks for wherever you happen to be right this moment, taking some time. Um, I want to start for your journey to understand, how you got to where you are now. But let's start in the college. I always find that that's probably one of the more fundamental places. But if you want to go back to high school or whatever, that's fine. But my understanding is you went to University of Maryland and you got a BA degree in criminology.
Yeah, actually, at that time, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. And so I was going to do criminal justice, and then I was also doing sociology. And then I applied for a couple law schools and was sort of heading in that direction. And at that time, I was working. I left college at that point, and at the time, I was working in a retail store called Herman's World of Sports, which is a very small store headquarters. It was owned by Grace Corporation out in Columbia, but they were involved in so many retails. And somebody came to me and offered me a job working in the defense industry. So a small company said, "Hey, CEO said, come work for me. I want you as my right-hand person." And put off school for a year. And that was sort of the beginning. If that conversation didn't happen, I surely wouldn't be here where I am today.
Tell me a little about that conversation, right? So you're deciding what you want to do, go back to college, continue working. Some guy comes along and says,
A friend of a family said, we got $2 million defense contracting company. I need somebody to sort of be jack of all trades. You'll come in, you'll be my sort of admin, and then in a short period of time, he may be a security officer for the company. So I had a clearance at that point. Then I started wasn't heavily involved in technology. Look, when I went to college, let's be honest, there wasn't heavily involvement of technology. So I got, that's when the PCs and all them were sort of breaking out, and got heavily involved in that, and worked for him for about, three years. And I became a project manager running a project for him. And I said to him, I went to him, I said, "Hey, I make sense start my own company doing computer repairs. Companies were breaking down, these computers were breaking down." And I said, "Here's the deal, you'll be my first customer."
Right.
And he said, "Great, what do you need from me?" I said, "Well, basically I need you to pay my salary for a year."
Right.
And he agreed to it. So started a company called United Computer Systems, built that, we evolved into networking and things of that nature. And he was always on my, among other people, my mentors. And I think the story, the theme through all my career was mentors. If you want to become a $5 million company, you hang out with $5 million people. If you want to become a $10 million people, you hang out with $10 million people. So as he was growing, I was growing, and he was guiding me, and I picked up some other mentors, and I ran into this two things that sort of occurred that were really important to me. One was a friend of mine's dad, who was running I think $1 billion company at the time. I forgot what it was called, but it was down in Northern Virginia. We're just talking about the future. And he says, "Never take that job for that job. Always take that job for the one after that. Think 2 jobs ahead. Think 2 careers ahead." And that really, to this day, that sort of sticks with me, So basically I figured, I want to really become a vice president of a bigger company. How do I get there? So my thought was, first of all, got to run your company and be successful. And so what ended up happening was the company that I was with came in and bought me out and said, come back to work for us. We need your expertise. We need your hardware technology expertise. And I became a vice president there.
Wow.
And so, it just goes to show you, think ahead, think of, sometimes you got to go a step to the side to get those 2 steps that you want to achieve. And so I did that and worked there for 5-6 years, and just, felt that, we were big. We were probably about 20 million decided that, needed something else. Decided that if I wanted to be a CEO or president, I got to start learning all the other aspects of the organization, finance, operations.
Did you find mentors for these things? You picked it up on your own? Go about
Yes, some of it were mentors, go back, if you want to be that, go find that, right?
Yep.
So I did find that, went to work for a small company where I became the CFO. And then I said, all right, I got to learn this, study. I already knew how to do P&Ls, but really what's the behind that? How do you manage to that? How do you build the value of a company through profitability? And then from there, went to another company in the same, still in the technology world, became their COO. And then that led me to another company where I became head of sales again, went back to running sales. And that company was quite interesting because that gave me access to more widely used technology at the time. We were state of the art, way ahead of most companies. So we were growing very rapidly. Amazing.
Was that the plan for you? Was it you wanted to move back into sales, or you wanted to move into a rapidly growing company? What was going through your mind when you made that transition?
I think, I think what was quite interesting was that I hadn't managed a big sales team before. So this gave me the opportunity to do that. And so what I learned there, which was quite interesting, is that there's not one way to be a great salesperson, right? Some people are technical, some people are entertainers, some people find the way in the middle, and no matter where you are, you got to know what you're good at, and then you could excel at being sales if you follow that model, right? So, and then we ended up getting bought out by a public company. So that was my first experience dealing with public companies and realizing that there are good things and bad things to that, and through that whole model was always building mentors around you that provided you, advice and knowledge and would guide you, and you could always,
How did you find mentors, right? The first one, obviously, with family friend, right?
Right.
Along your career, how did you find them? How did you vet them? I'm sure there are some people that you might not have chosen, but you looked at closely. Give me some of your thought process on that.
I think mostly they were met through networking, whether it was events or whether it was organizations that you joined, and then you would say, hey, look, can we get together? And I'd like to ask you some questions, and you go through those questions. Some like, what are your goals? What are you doing? What's your role? And you don't come out and say, will you be a mentor? Right. I think what ends up happening is that you just start spending more time with that individual. And I use the word mentor, but I had a conversation with a couple of CEOs the other day, and it says, is it a mentor or is it a sponsor? Right? What's the difference? Mentor might meet with you and answer all your questions, where a sponsor really takes you, under their wing. So I've been lucky. I've had both. But so.
And what do you look for?
I look for somebody that really, I think, who really wants to help. You can tell if somebody really wants to be a part of your success. They take a sort of ownership in that. They want to be key. They're available. Nowadays with technology, you can do it this way, right? Versus you always had to do it in face-to-face before. Yep. Somebody that is always, that you see the growth that they've had in their career, right? If they've been at the same level for 30 years, it doesn't mean that they're not in the same job. They could be in the same job, but have massive growth. Whatever it is, right, there's got to be that link to what you want to be in that career. So as long as they've had that, that's what I was looking for.
Sure. So take me back, right? So I forgot, what company were you with at this time?
At that time, I was a company called VSI.
VSI, yep. Okay.
And they went public. We got bought out by a company called FutureLink. And, we went from, I think we grew from 5 to 23 million. And then we, as a public company, this was like during the .com craze. So, funding, build it and they will come. Well, what I learned is two things I learned there. One is they don't always come,
Right.
Depending on the industry and how the marketplace was. But, that a public company has two different customers, right? They have your customer that you're supplying the capability with, but they also have the shareholder, which is really the most important customer. And sometimes they don't intersect.
Right.
And when they don't intersect, that becomes a problem. And I think that's what was happening in some of these .coms. They were trying to sell the raising of the money that we're going to do this, but the company was selling this to be profitable, and it turned out to fail. So as that was failing, which we all knew it was failing, we all bunch of us jumped on and basically created companies. So we all sort of stole a share of that failure and started, which Convergence was born. And so, from there, Convergence, we grew that pretty rapidly. And, we were in, again, it was a growing technology, systems integration, cloud computing wasn't called cloud yet, but it was called server-based computing, but it was really the beginning of cloud.
Yep.
And, there, I became, operations and became up, I think at one point we were up at $40 million. So that was a new experience, getting companies up to that distance. Then from there, I jumped over and helped be part of a team to develop a cyber product that we sold around the country and some international. And that was my first.
How'd you get hooked into cyber?
So really, when I was at Convergence, we were doing secure data centers, which was, at the beginning, cyber was a government issue, right? The only people that were dealing with cyber was intelligence. So we were building secure data centers for the intelligence community. So we had some interaction there from that. And we came across a couple of guys that were developing a product that needed some funding and needed some expertise, guidance. And so I got heavily involved in that and eventually became CEO of that company through its stage of growth. Through its stage of finalizing the product design, growing it, and then eventually we sold that to private equity. And then
which company was that?
That was called Intelligent ID. And so that, there's a different mentality between a product company and a services company.
Sure.
Different financial models, right? Services companies just sort of grow in baby steps. As you grow, you add more people, and you add more people. Where, the money you have to raise on a product company is all up front, right? You build it, and then hopefully you can replicate it at a much more
scale
efficient manner, right? So that was sort of an interesting knowledge. Hadn't experienced that before, and wanted to understand that.
Right. What'd you learn from that experience?
It's you never have enough money. If you're asking for 4, you need 10, right?
Yep.
I think from that thing that was probably the big one. And I think you really have to look at how you're going to distribute the model, right? Is it going to be a channel model? If you have enough money, can you build your own, internal sales force and have it positioned across the globe? And it, again, it's all comes down to dollars, when even there, if you look back, there's one thing, that company became successful really because one company took a chance on us and installed it, wasn't even paying for it because we basically gave it to them as a big company. And then they were able to be a reference for us. And when a big company is your reference, it carries a lot of weight. Right. And, without that, I'm not sure where we would have been.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. So what happened next?
So from there, didn't go with the company. So I had a pretty strict
non-compete.
And then I, did a stint working with the intelligence agency, another stint doing private equity, and I ended up where I am today at CyberCX.
Yeah. So what are you doing at CyberCX these days?
Run the U.S. region as president, and growing that company. That's new for me because it's a global company. We're 1,000 people large,
right, nice,
across the globe, and being able to deliver international global projects is great. It's
Yeah.
great to be a part of that.
Yeah. So how have some of the things that you've experienced in your career helped position you for success in the current role?
I think throughout the career, you learn about leadership, right? Everybody that comes under you or that's above you, you pick up different capabilities. This is what you do here. This is a good idea. This is what you don't do. And I've been blessed with good and bad leaders. And I will tell you, you learn more from a poor leader than you do from a great leader, right? Because everybody can lead during great times.
Right.
It's how you react when things aren't going so well. And people understand that leadership is, you can't just look at somebody and say, oh, he did something wrong. There's so many decisions that go in behind that people don't see sometimes, and they can't understand that. So I've heard people say he's a poor leader, but do you really understand all the things that's going on with those decisions that make you feel that way?
Right. Based on your career, what advice would you give somebody who's starting out maybe in their mid-20s, early 30s?
Just there's two lessons I learned. I think never take a job for that job.
Mhm.
Take a job for where that job's going to get you.
Right.
And build your mentors. Build your mentor practice. And be willing to realize that at some time you outgrow the mentor and you have to go to the next step.
Right. That's awesome. Hey, Larry, so what's next for you? Where do you see yourself a couple of years?
Well,
Retired?
I'm hoping, never. I'm hoping CyberCX, will continue to grow and be more dominant than we are now globally.
Mhm.
And I enjoy helping companies grow as well, being part of their mentors, helping mentor people.
Excellent. Hey, Larry, thanks so much for making time today. It was really informative and very inspiring. I really appreciate that.
Thank you very much.